Have you ever sat alone after a family gathering and thought to yourself, why did that comment sting so much? You smile through the dinner, pass the dishes, make conversation, but later, in the quiet, something aches. Maybe it was a tone, a joke at your expense, or maybe it was the way your thoughts were brushed aside, as if your words no longer held weight. You've raised children, offered your hands and heart to your family for decades. You've sacrificed more than they know, more than you probably even say aloud. But now, as you grow older, things feel different, like somehow your value has become conditional, like your presence is more convenient than cherished. It's subtle at first, a forgotten birthday, a harsh tone, a lack of gratitude. You tell yourself not to be sensitive. You say, they're just busy, or they didn't mean it that way. But deep down, you know what it feels like to be disrespected. And here's what I want to say to you. Getting older does not mean accepting less. It does not mean shrinking to make others more comfortable. It does not mean excusing behavior that would have hurt you at any age. There are things you should never accept. Not now. Not ever. Lily knows this pain well. She's 74, a retired school teacher with a laugh that could light up a room. But these days, she laughs less. Her daughter, 39 and always busy, rarely calls unless she needs something. When she does call, it's often short, rushed, and always ends with, okay, gotta go. One day, Lily tried to talk about something important to her, a recent health scare, something she hadn't shared with anyone. Her daughter interrupted, said, Mom, not now. I'm exhausted, and changed the subject. That night, Lily sat at her kitchen table and stared at her tea, now cold. She wasn't angry. She was hurt, and she began to wonder when her needs became a burden. The truth is, the first kind of disrespect many elders face is emotional dismissal. When your thoughts, feelings, or concerns are ignored, not because they're unimportant, but because someone else has decided they're inconvenient. And the danger in staying silent is that it teaches people how to treat you. If you allow your voice to be brushed aside long enough, they begin to believe you have nothing meaningful to say. But you do. Your voice still carries wisdom. Your stories still matter. Your fears, your joys, your reflections, all of it is still worthy of space. Henry had a different experience, but the same hollow feeling. He's 78, a former carpenter with hands weathered from decades of honest work. He lives with his youngest son's family now. When he first moved in, he felt hopeful, grateful, but over time, that hope turned to quiet disappointment. His privacy was slowly chipped away. His routine mocked. You're so old-fashioned. Dad, they'd say. When he asked for quiet in the evenings, they rolled their eyes. When he mentioned missing his morning walks, his daughter-in-law shrugged. Maybe it's time to just relax a bit. It was subtle. No shouting, no cruelty. Just a consistent message underneath it all. You no longer get to choose. And here lies the second form of disrespect. No elder should ever accept loss of autonomy disguised as care. There is a difference between support and control, between helping and handling. And when your choices, your time, your preferences, your space are taken from you without your consent, it's not kindness, it's erasure. You have earned the right to live your life on your terms, to wake when you wish, to dress how you like, to eat what makes you happy. These are not privileges. They are basic dignities. And yet, so many older adults quietly surrender them, believing it's the price of being looked after. But here's the truth. You are not a child. You are not fragile glass. You are not helpless. You are someone who has spent a lifetime standing tall, and you still deserve to do so. Madeline, a soft-spoken woman of 70, recently confided in a close friend, something she had never said out loud. They only come around when there's something they need. And I say yes every time, even when I'm exhausted, because I'm afraid that if I say no, they'll stop coming altogether. That fear, it's real. The fear of being abandoned. The fear of becoming unnecessary. And it's that fear that leads to the third form of quiet disrespect, conditional affection. When your family's love is tied to your usefulness, when they're warm only when you're giving, when your worth feels transactional instead of relational, that is not love. That is convenience dressed in kindness. And you deserve better. You deserve to be visited not just when the kids need a sitter, not just when someone's moving and needs your truck, not just when there's something you can offer. You deserve to be cherished for who you are, not what you provide. But here's the part we often forget. It starts with you, with your boundaries, with your quiet strength, with the way you begin saying no, not out of spite, but out of deep self-respect. It starts with choosing not to explain every choice, not to apologize for your rest, not to trade your time for scraps of connection. You are allowed to want more. You are allowed to expect kindness. You are allowed to walk away from conversations that leave you feeling smaller. And you are allowed at any age to say, "This is not how I will be treated." Because when you begin to honor yourself again, they will feel it. And those who love you truly, those who see your heart clearly, they will rise to meet you in that space. Not because you demanded it, but because you finally remembered that you never had to earn their respect to begin with. It's a quiet realization, often arriving in the middle of an ordinary day, that somewhere along the way, you started accepting things you never would have tolerated before. Maybe it began with a single comment brushed off, or a visit cut short, or a decision made about your life without your voice included. You told yourself it wasn't worth making a fuss, but then it happened again, and before you knew it, what once would have felt like a deep wound became a familiar sting you learned to carry in silence. But let me say this as gently and as firmly as I can. Disrespect does not get softer with time. It just gets quieter, until one day, you're not even sure what part of your life is truly yours anymore. Claire felt that deeply. She's 76 now and lives on her own. By choice. Years ago, her daughter insisted she move in with them. "We just want to take care of you," they said. But Claire knew herself. She wanted her routines, her garden, her solitude. So she stayed still. The disrespect didn't come through control. It came through language. Little things. "You're just old-fashioned. That's not how things work anymore. You wouldn't understand." Each time, Claire smiled politely. Let it pass. But inside, she began to feel erased. Like her experience, decades of it, was irrelevant in today's world. And that is the fourth form of disrespect no elder should ever allow. Being treated as if age has emptied you of wisdom. Your years are not a weakness. They are your strength. You have lived through seasons they can't yet imagine, losses, victories, quiet joys, and brutal awakenings. You carry insight not found in books or screens or clever arguments. And when someone disregards your voice because of your age, it says more about their blindness than your relevance. Lily, the teacher we spoke of earlier, said it best. "They may know the latest apps, but I know how to comfort a grieving heart. I know how to make something from nothing. I know how to stand back up when everything falls apart." That kind of wisdom is irreplaceable, but it must be protected, not with anger, not with yelling, but with calm boundaries, with a steady gaze that says, "I won't argue, but I won't be dismissed either." And sometimes, it means choosing silence not from defeat, but from clarity, because not every unkind word deserves a reply. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is not defend yourself, but remove yourself from spaces where your value is debated. Lucas, who used to drive an hour every Sunday to visit his daughter and her family, quietly stopped making the trip after too many weekends where he felt like an afterthought. They never offered him a chair, rarely looked up from their phones. He'd drive home feeling hollow, asking himself why he kept trying. So he stopped. No fight, no guilt. He simply began spending Sundays with people who made him feel alive. Friends from his senior center, neighbors who invited him in for coffee, his own company on long walks through the park. And over time, his absence was felt. His daughter called, asking why he hadn't come. And Lucas told her the truth, not to hurt her, but to be honest, because I was tired of showing up where I wasn't really seen. And that honesty led to something rare change. Because sometimes people don't realize how deeply they've disrespected you until your presence is no longer on autopilot. Your attention is a gift. Your time is sacred. And when you stop offering it so freely to those who disregard it, you open yourself to relationships where you are treated with care, not convenience. This leads us to another quiet, often overlooked form of disrespect, guilt disguised as love. Owen, a father of 3, heard it every time he said no. "But Dad, you always help us. Don't you want to see your grandkids?" We were counting on you." It didn't matter that he was exhausted, that he'd had a long week, that he wanted one quiet evening to himself. Their disappointment weighed heavier than his own fatigue, until one day, he realized, love doesn't guilt you into giving more than you have. Love respects your no. Love doesn't measure your worth by your usefulness. So Owen stopped offering explanations. When he said no, he left it at that, and slowly, his children learned to respect it. Not perfectly, not right away, but they started asking instead of assuming. They started thanking instead of expecting, because that's the difference self-respect makes. And finally, there's a form of disrespect that so often goes unnoticed until it's too late. It's the silence that comes when your needs are ignored, not because they didn't hear you, but because they chose not to respond. Abigail experienced this the hardest when she asked her son for help with a leaky pipe, not an emergency, just something she couldn't fix alone. He said he'd get to it. Days passed, then weeks. She asked again, quietly. "Yeah, I'll do it," he replied, annoyed, but he never came. So she called a plumber, and she stopped asking for help after that. It wasn't about the pipe. It was about the principle. Being ignored is a form of dismissal. Being taken for granted is a slow erosion of dignity. And the most painful part, it's rarely intentional, but that doesn't make it acceptable. You are not a burden for needing help, and your requests deserve the same urgency you once offered to everyone else. So if you've been quiet for too long, if you've been swallowing your hurt to keep the peace, if you've started to question whether you're asking for too much or simply asking the wrong people, this is your gentle reminder. Your needs are valid, your presence is not disposable, and your heart deserves better. You don't have to fight. You don't have to beg. You just have to remember who you are and begin acting like someone who knows it. There's something quiet that happens when you finally begin living from a place of self-worth instead of silent endurance. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It just settles into your bones, into your breath, into the way you start saying, "No, thank you," without guilt, or stop waiting for permission to enjoy your life. And in that space, things begin to shift, not always in your family, not always in your circumstances, but always within you. That's the real power, when the respect you once begged for starts to flow inward. When you stop needing it from everyone else because you've begun giving it to yourself. Abigail, after that moment with her son and the leaky pipe, did something different. She stopped centering her days around who might need her. She started waking up and asking, "What do I need today?" At first, the answers were simple: a walk, a hot cup of tea, a quiet moment to read in the sun. But over time, those simple acts became sacred rituals, and in their steadiness, she began to feel whole again. It didn't go unnoticed. Her son came by one day, surprised to find her out in the garden with friends, laughing over something silly. She hadn't told him to come. She hadn't waited by the phone. She hadn't reminded him of her needs. And in her presence, full, radiant, independent, he paused. He asked if she wanted to go out for lunch, not out of obligation, but curiosity, because something in her energy had changed. That's the thing about self-respect. It speaks without words. When you stop tolerating disrespect, when you stop bending to be accepted, you begin to rise in ways that others can't help but notice. But here's the beauty of it. Even if they don't notice, you still win, because you are no longer living on borrowed worth. Henry, the carpenter, found something similar. After months of having his preferences ignored in his son's house, he quietly moved out. No angry confrontation, no accusations, just a firm, clear decision. I want to live somewhere that feels like mine. He downsized into a cozy apartment near a park. He bought furniture he liked, set his own bedtime, made soup the way he enjoyed it, salty, not bland, and for the first time in years, he felt like a man again. Not just a father, not just an aging figure in someone else's story. A man, with a routine, with dignity, with the full autonomy he thought he had lost forever. His son was shocked. "Why didn't you say anything?" he asked. Henry smiled. "I did. You just didn't hear it. So I spoke with my actions instead. And sometimes, that's all you can do. Because change doesn't always come from conversation. Sometimes it comes from departure, from silence, from choosing your own peace over their comfort. And that choice, though quiet, is transformational. Natalie had spent most of her life as the listener. Her children talked, and she nodded. They made decisions, and she supported them. Even when it hurt, even when she disagreed, even when she knew in her gut it was wrong, she told herself that being supportive meant being silent. But over time, the silence hollowed her out. She realized she had been edited out of her own family's life, kept around for traditions, for favors, but not for truth, not for depth. So one day, when her daughter began talking about a major decision, selling the family home without asking her, Natalie didn't argue. She just stood still, looked her daughter in the eye and said, "I won't stop you, but I won't be part of it." The words fell gently, but they landed hard. And for the first time, her daughter paused, really paused, because Natalie had stopped playing the role of the agreeable mother and had stepped fully into the role of a self-honoring woman. That's what this part of life is calling you to become. Not someone who gets louder, but someone who becomes so rooted in their value, they don't have to fight for it. You've already proven yourself. You've loved, served, supported, and stood by your family through seasons they don't even remember. You've been the safe place, the sounding board, the giver. Now it's time to be something else. 2. The example, the one who teaches not by lecture, but by living what dignity looks like in older age. The one who doesn't tolerate jokes that cut too deep. The one who doesn't respond to guilt-laced requests. The one who doesn't justify her decisions, or downplay his emotions, or apologize for having limits. You are still shaping your family, still leading, but now, you lead by standing tall in your boundaries, and you might be surprised when you do that. When you begin to truly respect yourself again, how the people around you start adjusting. Some will pull away, some will resist, but some will rise. They will begin to see you, not just as a parent or grandparent, but as a person, a full, living, feeling, evolving person. And those are the relationships worth keeping close, because they're built not on obligation, but on mutual respect. And if none of them rise, if the disrespect continues, you will still be okay. Because now, you're standing on solid ground, no longer waiting to be respected, but living like someone who already is. If you've made it here, to this moment, I want to say something simple and sincere. Thank you. Thank you for staying through this conversation, not just with me, but with yourself. Because sometimes the hardest part of healing isn't confronting others. It's confronting the quiet parts within us that got used to being overlooked, that adapted to being ignored, that made peace with being the one who always gives and rarely receives. But not anymore. Today, something shifted. Maybe just a little. Maybe in a way so small you can't name it yet. But it shifted, and that matters. Because recognizing disrespect is the first step to releasing it. Refusing to accept it is the beginning of your return to wholeness. And living in your worth without defending it, without begging for it, is how you reclaim joy. This isn't about blame. We don't sit here to shame your children, or your in-laws, or anyone in your life who has failed to treat you with the care you deserve. We sit here to name what's been unnamed, to hold space for your truth, because your heart has held so much quietly, faithfully, lovingly for years, and now it deserves to be held too. Held in respect, held in compassion, held in peace. So let me ask you something. Have you experienced any of these forms of quiet disrespect? Have you ever felt ignored, diminished, or tolerated by your own family? And if so, how did you cope? Did something finally shift for you? Or are you still in that process? If you feel safe, I invite you to share your story in the comments. Not just for me, but for the others who will read your words and feel less alone. Your story is your strength, and sometimes your voice is the spark that lights someone else's way forward. And if this message has resonated with you, if it stirred something gentle, or brought a sense of calm, or reminded you that you are not invisible, then I hope you'll stay connected here. Click subscribe if that feels right for you, not out of habit, but out of connection. Because this is more than a video. This is a gathering place. For people like you, people with tender hearts and deep wisdom, people who are learning, maybe for the first time, that it is not selfish to protect your energy, that it is not rude to expect kindness, that it is not wrong to say, I matter. 2. You've spent a lifetime being strong for others. Now it's time to be strong for yourself. That doesn't mean being hard. It means being honest. It means loving gently, but no longer endlessly, for people who drain you. It means showing up for the life that still wants to grow through you fully, quietly, and without apology. So tonight, or tomorrow morning, or whenever you find yourself alone and questioning your place in their lives, breathe, close your eyes, and remember, you are not here to beg for decency. You are not here to shrink for their comfort. You are here to live, to rest, to rise, and to be treated always with the same love and care you've so freely given. You are not past your prime. You are in your power, and no matter who sees it, you do now. And that, my dear friend, is where everything begins, always.